focusing on change. Yeah. So it's like a business domain. Topic 4, focusing on how do we work with organizational changes, how do we adapt in our project in order to take care of organizational changes. As a project manager, you are expected to do that. Second, how do you facilitate change in the organization? So it is little tricky. Many times when people are learning about adaptivity, agile, it's more about how do we change our priorities, change our requirement because something is changing. That is anyway needed, but we also need to focus on changing the user's behavior, changing the organization processes, changing the organizational approaches. So the project has a bi-directional relationship with the change. If some changes are happening at an organization level, they impact us, yeah, they impact our working inside the project, and if the project is producing some deliverables, it also impacts the changes in the organization. Now, what could be the organization level change? There could be a change in leadership. You may have a new leader, new management, and they have a different priorities. They may look at things differently. They may have a different risk appetite. They may want to play safe, or a reverse. You may have an aggressive management who may want to focus on taking lots of risk. So your approaches, your execution of project may get impacted. Your organization may have a change in a business. They may start focusing on different geography, different type of product, which will also impact the ongoing project. You may have a new stakeholders get identified. You may have a new, say, members in the governance group or in the organization who have recently joined, and that may also impact the way they look at the project, and you need to take care of their needs and expectation. The organization may decide to go for a new process. Yeah, they may say go for digital transformation. They may want to go for agile transformation, something like that, and they may want to do things differently when it comes to a governance level. They may want to collect different kind of matrices. They may want to manage the work in a different way. That also influences the project. You may have a new requirement which might be coming from these changes. You may have a new compliance which might be coming internally, might be coming externally, and all these things can produce a change in the project. So as a project manager, I need to take care of these things getting impacting my project. So that's one dimension of looking at the change. Now, somebody will say, okay, this is relatively easy to identify. What about the other direction? How the project might impact the organization? Now, you need to consider the project in two contexts. Yeah. One context of the project, let me try to take a rough call and see if I can explain it little well here. So I can say one way of doing of project is that you are having your internal organization, they have a business case, and based on that they have issued a project charter, and you are executing the project, and they will consume the deliverable inside the organization. That could be a one context. So say they wanted to make you an automated robot for the manufacturing plant. As a project, you produce that particular robot automated thing, and that has to be consumed in the organization. So consumption will require readiness for automated robot. So that's a one scenario. By default, business domain is focusing on this scenario. Some of you will say, but that is not the way I work. My projects are different. We have a customer who gives us an order, we just execute it and we give the deliverable back, and that's it. That's our role. Now in this particular case, when you are giving a deliverable to your customer, you may not see a lot of change happening because of the project, but actually that is happening inside the customer space. So maybe you as a project manager or your project team may not be involved in making the adaptation ready for this new deliverable, but there is a change in that case also. And your organization, while in the process of developing this particular deliverable, they may develop a new skill, they may develop a historical data that is also changing the way organization look at these kind of project in future. So if you are doing the path A, which is this one, you will see a lot of change happening because of your project deliverable. If you are doing path B, maybe you have a little limited visibility about how your project is impacting the different or an organization from a change perspective. Now let's focus on this particular path and says, okay, what probably the my particular project can generate as a change. So here we can say that if I am producing the deliverable, I can say, and my deliverable may create something new. In general, the projects are expected to drive change. The whole idea of project is creating a unique product, unique service, unique deliverable, which was not there with the organization before, which means something new is coming. It will definitely change my organization. I may want to set up a new business model. I may want to have a new app so that it will help me in generating revenue. I may want to automate some of the manual process. Whatever I will do, it will change my organization. And in a PIMBOK 7, we talk about that system of value delivery. So just project alone is not producing a delivery or an outcome. The other part, the operations, the support has to come together in order to produce the desired outcome. So project drives the change by way of producing a deliverable. Basically, you can say I produce a new product which will get consumed by the organization. I may automate some of the work. I may produce good skills because of the project. I may change my people, they learn something, and that knowledge, that skill is available for the organization for a future uses. So in general, my project will not be able to achieve outcome till the time I can manage this part of the change well. Because just producing a deliverable is just an app, it's a robot. But robot will not help you in saving the cost till the time your manufacturing unit start making a good use of that particular robot. So as a project manager, you may have a role. Now the may is important, sometimes some other teams might be doing it, to ensure that the deliverable which has been produced in your projects are consumed well, understood well in the organization, so the benefits of the project can be achieved. So that is what is expected from a project manager, to have an understanding of both direction of the change and drive the changes in a way so that they produce the desired outcome. Our whole focus is generating value for the organization, and we do it by way of taking care of these two directions of the change. Now I go a little deep. Now that's a high level idea of our task 4 in a business domain. Now just setting up a context, we have a 12 principles. Personally, I feel most of the principles are talking about change, but these 4 principles I feel are more prominently showing that as a project leader, as a project manager, now you need to take care of the change. The principle 2 talks about recognize, evaluate, and respond to a system interaction, which means the system like operational group, program group, portfolio group may have some changes. They might interact with you differently. So you need to respond to it. Yeah. The business systems, the customer support, all those groups in which you are operating, you need to keep eye on them. And if they are changing, you probably need to change accordingly so that you can achieve the outcome. We need to navigate complexity, which means the things will not be very clear to us. As we go along, we will come to know things. We will have a better understanding of what things are working and which particular things are not working. And by following that particular thing, that we are helping the organization to achieve their desired objective. Yeah, so that's the thing. Now, before I move forward, I just end up seeing the word that project drive change. What is the meaning of it? As I said, the project is producing a unique deliverable. And if we want to consume that deliverable, we need to change. I might be doing, my organization is running a stable thing, but they initiated a project, and whatever project will produce, if I want to use it, it will drive a change in my company. So example is, if I want to automate part of my process, I initiate the project automates it. Now my people have to behave differently. They need to use that automation. So that's the whole idea. The primary purpose of project is to develop something new which doesn't exist. And the organization must consume that something new in order to deliver the value. Yeah, so it's like that's the whole intent of projects drive change. I picked up this statement from PIMBOK 6, but that's the whole idea. So coming back to the project management principles, so we need to see how the overall interactions are happening. When I want to drive a change, maybe some systems are not ready to that. Probably the operational group is not ready to use the product in the current form. We need to change a little bit. So I need to understand how the preference of operational groups are changing, how the new technologies are coming, and probably I need to manage that. Similarly, navigate complexity. It primarily means that things will not be clear from the day one. As we go along, we need to continuously keep validating things, and that help us in changing ourselves so that we meet our customer outcome objective, value delivery objective, rather than only sticking to the deliverable. Again, these are project management principles, like it is, they are defined at a very high level, but we make some interpretation so that we can connect with our task. Embrace adaptability and resilience, clearly talking about that we should be flexible and we should have a bounce back attitude. Whenever we have a setback, we should be able to come back, responding and adapting towards the change, and clearly saying enable change to achieve envisioned future state. So that could be the another way of saying project drives change. So we need to enable that, because organization has initiated the project to achieve something. They may want to get into new business segment, they may want to get into new customer segment, and we need to enable that to achieve it. I point out again, if you are doing a vendor customer driven project and you are a vendor to it, you may not see all those changes and impacts happening in your customer very very clearly, but actually they are expected to be there. That's why they are spending money on your deliverable. More I know as a project manager, more I can support in ensuring the value delivery. So that's like a briefing about how probably a project takes care of the change. Now I go further and a little bit more, 5-10 minutes, and then we start with our Q&A. So let's look into two diagrammation. What do I do when the organization is changing, and what do I do when and how we take care of project to organization and organization to project. So first we are looking at organization to project. Now my whole idea is project manager role. Yeah, project manager task, because that's what PMP exam expects, how the project manager handles these things. So task talks about I need to be able to adapt to the organization level changes. What I am saying is, as a project manager, you should be able to recognize the change first and respond to it. Simple. I see things have changed. They are not as same as we started with, and probably I need to do something if they are impacting my project outcomes. So I must recognize the change. Now there could be various tasks you do, various activities you do to recognize the change. I'm listing some of them here. Probably you do continuous environment assessment. You keep looking at how things are working. Yeah, what is working, what is not working, how our strength weaknesses are changing, how the technological environment is changing, how the political environment is changing, how our leadership attitude is changing, how the policies in the organization is changing. I keep looking at my environment scan. So periodically on various milestone reviews, or in the case of agile way of working every iteration, I need to assess the relevant environment which has an impact on my project deliverables. So that's a one way to discover if something is changing, and then I recognize it. I continuously engage with stakeholder. I keep talking to them and ask them that, okay, is there anything needs to be changed? I keep taking feedback from them. I keep listening to their idea as a project manager, and I understand if there is something cooking up or something is changing, our earlier assumptions are not valid anymore, and we need to probably adapt in our project. So I do a stakeholder engagement, which helps me in recognizing the change. I keep looking at issues and risks. Yeah, if I see a pattern of issues coming in, if I see a pattern of risk coming in, I understand from where these things are coming in. We were not expecting all these issues or these kind of risk. Looks like something has changed than we thought before. Some of our assumptions are not holding true. That also helps me in recognizing the change. I may conduct milestone reviews, ask feedback in the milestone reviews to the stakeholder, demonstrate what we have done till now, and that also help us in identifying if something has changed. Governance reviews, feedbacks on a various points are all places where I can sense some of the changes. Now these terms are more linked to predictive way of working. They might be relevant for hybrid way of working as well, but in the adaptive way of working we may need to focus on those terminologies. We can say iteration reviews, or iteration reviews is something which we are iterating on a frequent basis. We need to know what is working and what is not working. We detect, yeah, if something has to be changed. We may release our versions incrementally. That's what we are expected to do in the adaptive way of working. Maybe we may do our minimum viable increment, or we may have a minimum business increment. All those things, words, we can go into detail, but frequent releases, they also help us in validating our assumptions. They help us in getting the real customer feedback, and we realize that if something is changing in our customer segment, if something is changing in our assumption, we come to know in advance. And that can be done in the form of a backlog refinement as well. We may conduct a backlog refinement meeting in the adaptive way of working. So this section is adaptive oriented, you can say, and this section is predictive oriented, and hybrid could be a mix of both. That's what we keep learning when we are learning our PMP content. We need to see everything from the eye of predictive, adaptive, and hybrid. So this is possibly the way we can also recognize the changes. Now, how do we respond to it? First, you make the change visible. We need to make sure the facts are visible. Yeah. We need to make change recognized, change analyzed, impact of the change, the magnitude of the change should be very, very visible to our relevant stakeholder. That's what I do. After making it visible, I probably update my project management plan directly. If it doesn't impact us too much, maybe it is under my thresholds, which is not raising a change request, I may update my project management plan, take care of my contingencies. Through my contingency, I respond to these changes. In some cases, when the changes are very high, as per my change management plan, whatever the threshold is identified there, I may initiate a change control process. Again, I may do a detailed impact analysis, present the idea, show the impact of this particular change which is happening in our deliverable as well as our. So we should show what is the impact of changing by way of cost. At the same time, we also need to show what is the impact of changing as a part of benefit. And we also need to show what is the cost of not changing as a part of opportunity loss. So I may do a different kind of analysis to show the benefits as well as cost attached with that particular change in a predictive way of working. In the adaptive way of working, this all may get done in the backlog refinement. I can say that continuously when we are doing backlog refinement based on iteration reviews, feedback on all our discussions and MVPs and MPIs, we may involve critical stakeholders all the time. Maybe a product owner plays a more critical role there, but we need to ensure that changes are made visible and our stakeholders, respective people as a part of a backlog refinement, they do a due diligence and respond accordingly, which means they prioritize the product backlog and they identify what they have to do in the upcoming iterations. So that's something is an idea which is associated with my organization change impacting my project. Now I'm going reverse. How a project change might impact the organization. So as we have learned, projects drive change. I need to ensure that this thing is moved many times. There has been like I am into project management for a while, and during my initial era, time of project management, we used to have enterprise resource planning projects more like 2000, 2001, and 2. And there used to be a lot of studies which talks about that most of the enterprise level software developments are failing, because of poor change management. We buy the product, but we don't educate people well. We don't have a buy-in from the peoples, and people keep using their manual processes, and after some time they stop using the whole product, and we may say that it's a failed implementation because we could not configure it well. So good amount of projects were failing because of poor change management rather than just not having the right deliverables. Now failing means they are failing to achieve the desired outcome. Maybe you have a deliverable in hand, but nobody wants to use it. So we need to ensure, because now our focus, especially from last 2 years or 3 years when the new PMI new content is there, our focus is generating outcome, just not producing the output. So we need to ensure that as a project, we have a mechanism to enable organization to change. Now, what should we do? This is my interpretation. Evaluate and enable. So we need to evaluate the impact of our project on people, yeah, in order to achieve the desired outcome, on the processes, on the systems, or various other elements of our organizational environment, what you call it, organizational culture. We need to evaluate that. And based on that evaluation, we need to come up with the approach and strategy which enables the organization to adapt to the new deliverable. Yeah. So again, I am generically posting some of the ideas which will be very useful for PMP exam. These are the type of tasks you will do when you are enabling the organization for the change. Now, what I can probably do as a project manager, you may focus on things like rollout planning. First, you need to do a detailed rollout planning so that you know which group will go first, how we will implement it, the overall understanding of the change. Now, when you are enabling the change, you may not be a driver. As a project manager, you may not be a driver. So, say you have a robot ready, you want to install that robot in the plant, but you can't tell the things there. The plant has its own ecosystem, they have their own supervisor, they may have their own head, and you need to work with them. And you may have a different group as a group created just to roll out this thing. So I need to participate in a rollout planning. I may do my part of planning, and I need to integrate that planning is working well with a proposed shutdown, the market production, and other things, so that organization can do the rollout in the integrated manner. So I enable the rollout planning rather than do it myself alone, because other people are important. I may enable the people by way of training, mentoring, and coaching. It's all like that they know. Training is all about educating them on the new system. Mentoring and coaching is more about creating a skill so that they can use the new system. So that could be the another thing I do. I may work with various stakeholders so that they understand what they are doing and what should we do in order to promote the outcome by way of enabling change. I may set up a support desk. You may call it a hypercare desk or something which where people and the users can come and talk about their problems. We may have a system where they can raise a ticket, their issues get clarified, their particular problems get solved so that they start using the system. We may create a knowledge base, yeah, where people can read about various manuals. We may create a lot of video content, various promotional things so that people can get this information at a faster speed. And we may have a knowledge transfer process as well by way of putting the things on a place so that others can consume it. So those kind of activity, I as a project manager may do it myself, may be a part of the bigger team where me and my project team is supporting setting up a help desk and providing training and mentoring. There could be other people in the rest of the organization also involved. So this is my role when I am enabling the change. So it's a bi-directional thing which you need to focus on. Here we quickly read the task associated with it. So I'm not going to a separate slide this time. So it's a business domain task 4, and we are finishing the task 4 now. So it talks about assess organization culture. It's more about that you should know your enterprise environmental factor. You should know your leadership style. You should know how things get done here, how people behave, how people think. So you need to have a sense of it. And then you need to keep the impact or a change in the organizational cultural element, how they are possibly impacting your project. So evaluate impact of organizational change to the project and determine the required action. We look it into it with the help of various tasks, and then we talk about evaluate impact of the project to the organization to determine the required task. So that's what I was saying, that we need to assess what the evaluate where we are, and then we need to enable people so that we can respond to those changes. Yeah. So this is all about your topic on supporting organizational change, the domain business task 4.